Hi all, so back again. A month has passed since my last video, which is quite crazy really when you think about it, because time seems to fly. A model engineering exhibition's been and gone. Saw one or two familiar faces walking around, which is good to see. Saw some amazing models, engines, boats, planes, you name it, it was all there. My own personal feeling on the show, I had a list of stuff to get. I got what I needed. One or two things were a bit lacking, I thought, but for the size of the venue, it's to be expected. So, but it was good to see that the show was busy. So yeah, that was kind of my real thoughts on the show. So, right, this class 2. I've not been in the workshop for 2 weeks now. And you can probably hear by my voice I'm absolutely full of cold, so that struck me well, but there has been some progress on the class 2 even though I've not been in the workshop, which you think, oh, how's that happened? So last time we was doing dimple steps and I had to solder up the step itself because I'd done the treads and everything like that. So there is a black satin painted, or undercoat you could say, rear step. That's one of them, and you can see just see the two holes. Let me see if I can bounce the light off it properly. You can just see the two holes in the bottom there, 3 holes in the top. So the top 3, sorry, there's a piece of angle that I've cut, and that has to be soldered to a top piece of angle on the side of the frames, which creates the distance. And then I have this little piece that sits at the bottom here, and uses, as I said, there's a backing plate, spacer tube, and then another backing plate, and the one this side, frame side, marries up with the guard iron, 2 of the guard iron bolts. So that's one already done and looks really, really neat. I've put a bit of undercoat on it basically to keep the rust off it, because my workshop in the winter goes below the dew point, and you'll, on engineering forums and stuff like that, you get a lot of people say keep your workshop above the dew point. Mine drops below that dew point and now I get rust. So anything that I've kind of finished like that, getting that finished, I'll whack a bit of paint on it, and it's not going to be its overall finished colour, it'll be in a gloss black eventually, but that satin just keeps the rust at bay. What else can I show you? This I completed weeks ago, and it's ready for soldering up, and that's an intermediate upper stretcher, or an upper stretcher should I say. You can see where the tabs have come through. It's slot and tabbed at the back, and then you've got these raised bits here. These will be ground off or filed off once it's soldered up. They're there literally to hold this long straight piece in place. And then there's also these 2 bits that go on the top, and they are, if I just tilt it without knocking them off like that, they are packing pieces to support the underside of the tank. Now on full size, and I didn't realise this until I was looking into works drawings, there would be rubber packers on top of those, and it would obviously cushion the weight of the tender on that. Obviously we're not going to do that, we're just going to go straight up tender bottom onto that. So that's what they're for. The tender bottom itself, the tank bottom, I've already ordered that from Ed at Model Engineers Laser in brass, and I might be a bit premature in ordering it, but I want it to help me with, as daft as it sounds, I wanted to help it with squareness of the frames. When the outrigger supports are on, and all the stretchers and everything are in, with the holes that are already in the tank bottom, it'll show if it's going out a square, because it's got the holes that marry up with these outriggers. Where if I find one, it'll marry up with those holes on the end. So it'll show if it's going out a square in any way. At the moment, putting a square on the frames and stuff, everything is looking as it should be. So we're not having a problem so far, and everything at the minute is kind of not loosely bolted together, but it is loosely bolted together because there's no point me finishing it off, because I've still got the horn guides to put on, the spring hangers to put on, the brake hangers to put on, so there's no point going daft and wanging up bolts really tight, for the simple reason is I have to pull it all apart to put those parts on, or put those components on. Now what I'm just doing at the moment is sliding out that bad boy, and that is the front drag box there, and you can see, look, it's been TIG welded where it comes through. Now I put a plea on Facebook, on a local Facebook group local to me, asking if anyone local to me did TIG welding, and sure enough there was a fellow on there says, yeah, I can do that for you. And he obviously, when I said to him what it was, he thought it was a lot bigger than it is. So I'll finish these ends so it's to width. He said, yeah, no problem, I can do that for you. He thought it was a lot bigger than it was. I need to put that down there. He thought it was a lot bigger than it was, so when he got it, he was like, oh yeah, no problem, I'll have it done by the following day. Sure enough, it's already very, very strong, but I'm still going to run a bit of solder in places. These have got to go in, these two parts here, these are the drawbar pin bushes. I've got to press those in. I'm going to run a bit of solder when they're in, and it just stops them from moving. On the Dick Stockings drawings it says just press fit them in, which they are a bit of a press fit on mine already, but I don't like something that could eventually, once it's had a bit of strain put on it, could waggle itself out. I suppose if I got my tolerances right it wouldn't waggle itself out, but if I run a bit of silver solder around the joint it'll definitely not come out, so that's what the plan is going to be with that. This part I was talking to you about, I've received the countersunk rivets now for that. That's one thing I was trying to get at the show, some countersunk copper rivets. I had to order them in the end, so I've got a little packet of them there. So I'm going to rivet these holes up, ready for this to go in. Talk to you about that bit. That's going to go in there, and then I'm going to re-drill tapping size on those holes at the top. Now you'll notice with this one, if I just pull it back out again, you'll notice on this one I've got a bumper finished on there. You see that bumper? It's more like the full size version, that little bumper. So it's got a spring in there. I've not done the back yet. I've not put the back part. I've not done that bit yet. I've literally just turned that on the lathe and made the bumper look like it should. So I've still got another one of those to do, but that's quite neat. I'm happy with that. So yeah, it's starting to come up together with an absolute mass of parts all over the place. For those that have been asking about this railway wagon I'm doing, I'm glad to say I've nearly finished it, because once I've finished it I'm going to do a bit of a show and tell video on it, of where it all come about and how it came about. So I'm glad to say it's nearly finished. This last 2 weeks has put me back a bit, but anyway, back to the Class 2 bevel gears. They're a 1-to-1 ratio bevel gear, and I've got those to do the handbrake, because I've been doing a bit of drawing while I've been sat waiting for aeroplanes that aren't coming back to the UK. I'll sit with a laptop open and do a little bit of drawing, and I've been drawing the excuse me, I've been drawing the front part of the tender, obviously because I've ordered that lower plate. I've been ordered the front part of the tender as well, and I've been drawing up all the cupboards and everything like that, and going really in depth with getting every bit of detail in there. And the detail, it's kind of omitted completely on the Dick Stockings drawings. It's like there's some cupboards and then there's a coal chute doors, gangway doors. He's not got the lamp brackets that are in there for storing spare lamps. And that's something that I did a bit of a trawling about, because I didn't realise at the time there's different lamp brackets. Obviously there's the Western region, which are twisted 90 degrees. There's different lamp brackets for different regions. Now this is a Midland engine, and the Midland brackets are different to the Eastern brackets, which preserved engines that I've seen have the Eastern brackets on, and they're taller and not narrow as such, but they are narrower. They're taller and have a less of a radius on the top of them than the Midland brackets. So I did a bit of a question out in the railway forums if anyone got a works drawing for the lamp brackets, and I had the drawing number but I couldn't find it on the NRM's website. And sure enough, someone came to my aid and says, yeah, I've got that, there's different lamp brackets, blah blah blah. This is the information you need. So I managed to draw up the brackets, scale them down, draw up the brackets, put that detail into the front of the tender above the cupboard spaces. So if you look at the front of a BR standard tender, which I'll put a picture on in the corner on here somewhere, or maybe this side, I'll put a picture on. And you've got the two cupboards either side, then you've got the coal space gangway doors. On the Dick Stockings drawings, there's nothing size-wise. It says that's how wide the cupboards are and that's how wide they are, and that's about it. It doesn't say about hinge sizes or anything like that. So you've got to go back and go, right, okay, I want it to look right, NRM, blah, 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 blah. I got a works drawing anyway for that front part of the tender, and I've managed to take out the information I need, convert it and stuff like that. So I managed to get some very small, I don't know if you can see that, some very small brass hinges. These are the cupboard hinges, will become the cupboard hinges. Now I've ordered them because it saves me faffing about with some very thin brass and trying to make some. I will still be making the locker latches at the ends of the lockers. I'll be making them, and also the bigger hinges. I've got some left over from my first class 2 with my dad, I think. I'm not 100% on that. I need to do a bit of rummaging in this messy workshop to find out. But if I have, that saves me that, because they're slightly bigger than those hinges. Excuse me. So also as well, and that just led me on to thinking about that, someone asked me about why you're building a second class 2 if you built one with your dad. Now, without going too in depth and making this a very long video, years and years and years ago, I went from 00 gauge, sold all my 00 gauge stuff and got into model engineering. I was into railways, that was a given. But my dad says, if you're going to go for it, if you're going to build an engine, build an engine that you're happy with. Build, you know, you're going to put in the time and effort, whether it be 3.5, 5 inch, whatever. If you're going to put the effort in, build the engine you're happy with, you're not going to mess about with. So I decided to go 7.25. 5 inch I could have probably done with quite happily, because I was at the time driving a little 5 inch engine at the local club and I was happy. Steam is steam in my eyes, so if you put in fire into a belly of a steam engine, no matter what gauge it is. Anyway, he was building these home side. I decided to do this class 2, but we did it as a joint project because he had the engineering knowledge and I didn't. So we started off doing this engine, and we got 4 years into the build. So if you take that, I've been doing this a year now and it's coming on well. We were 4 years into the build. We had, the frames were done, it was a rolling tender chassis. It had the tank on it. We were still adding the detail in the bunker and stuff like that. We were still adding a lot of detail to it. I moved away for a job and moved down south. and there was a show that I helped run 2 years prior. I helped do this show, and I said, because on that particular show I stayed and was there as security, and I said to him, I says, I don't want the engine and tender to go on show because I'm not going to be there as security. And it wasn't a case of I knew something was going to happen. I didn't feel comfortable with it. It was out in a tent in a field, and I wasn't happy. And he was like, yeah, but I'm really proud of it, of what we've achieved. We need to go and put it on show. So we did. Long story short, engines went missing that weekend, one of them being my tender. So we had loco frames on the front of it, on the show, on the stand, with the wheel castings zip tied to the side of it, and it looked pretty, and the tender was there, all brass, looking beautiful. It got nicked. Long story short, it got stolen. Anyway, 10 years had passed, and I'd given up. Once my engine had got nicked, that was it. I'd given up on model engineering. I'd had enough. Because who could do something like that to somebody? So anyway, without going too dark and dismal, my dad was on his deathbed in hospital. And he was dying of cancer. I don't know what made me look. And it was probably a conversation we had that he said to me, while he could still talk, he said to me, he says, you've got an hell of a project coming up, son, and you need to get your head screwed on. And he was meaning about finishing his engine. Me being me, going, yeah, okay, yeah, not a problem. And I think it was that spurred me on to just kind of scour the internet and start looking at different engines for inspiration and stuff. And I came across, on Station Road Steam, a BR Standard 2 tender. All painted up, logo on, BR emblem on the side. And I looked at it and I thought, well, that looks very familiar. And anyone who, if you've built an engine, you know it inside out. You'll know every rivet, nut, bolt and everything because you've made it. And I looked at it and looked at it and looked at it and I thought, that's mine. 10 years had gone past, 10 whole years. So anyway, I tracked it down. This Station Road Steam had sold it. And they sold it in good faith to a chap. They knew nothing about the history of that thing. And then I watched a YouTube video of Eccleswood Weekend, Standard Steam Weekend. And I saw my same tender being pulled around behind a Standard Class 2 tank engine. Now, if you're into railways and into engines, you know for a fact that a Standard 2 tender doesn't go behind a tank engine. So that was like, right, okay, I'm on to something here. So I got the police involved and said to them, I've got all the photographs of when I was building this thing and it's stolen and I need to track it down. Obviously, it's gone from a dealer to somebody. It's been sold in good faith. You know, I need to track it down. I need to find it. Anyway, long story short, I find who bought it. The police got involved. The original crime number, because 10 years had passed, the original crime number was no longer on file. So I had to physically prove it was mine. Luckily, I had every bit of information, every photograph and everything. And there was details on that tender that are omitted from the Dick Stockings drawings that I put into it. Because I proved it. The police said to the guy, says, look, you've bought it in good faith. We know that. You'll get your money back from the dealer. The police looked into it in depth. And after about a month, I got a phone call from them and they said it had gone from where it was stolen. It left the country straight away and went to Holland or Germany or somewhere like that. It came back to the country. It went back out the country for 10 years. And it eventually came back to the country. And then ended up down near London, which is where I retrieved it from, and everything like that. So, but I'd fell out of love with it. Now I got the tender home. I wasn't living here at the time. I was living further away. I got the tender home. I said to my dad, you know, literally within weeks of him dying, I says, I found our tender, Dad, and all he could do was give me a thumbs up. But he had the biggest smile on his face. So without getting all welling up and tearful, that's one thing that my dad knew before he passed away, that I found it. However, I didn't have the heart to finish that engine because of what happened to it and everything that had gone on, and the thought of my dad passing away and stuff. I just didn't have the heart to finish it. So the guy who bought it in good faith, I sold everything to him. I sold the tender, I sold all the castings that I had, and I still had a lot of castings. I had the engine frames, I had loads of stuff. Sold everything, all the bits of everything I had, all the research I did, everything. He had the whole lot, and I'm pleased to say he's still on that build. It's a little bit delayed because of family life and stuff. These things happen. He's still on with that build. He's still slowly progressing with it, and I'm right pleased. So that is how I came back to doing another one. So I know that's a bit of a long-winded story, but I got asked, and because I got asked, I'm going to tell you. So that is how I'm now building another one. But this one, I'm putting even more detail into it, which I think if my dad was still around, he'd be right chuffed with, because the internet and technology and stuff like that was in its infancy when my dad was around. And now, with everything that we can do as model engineers, I think we'd absolutely go bonkers with detail and stuff, even more than what I'm doing. So yeah, I mean, I know he's around when I'm in my workshop. Well, it's his workshop essentially. I know he's around. There's certain things that he does that I just know he's here, looking over my shoulder, being proud of what I'm doing and carrying on. I didn't just finish his engine and go, that's it. I've done what I needed to do and I've packed in model engineering. I'm still doing it and I'm still loving it when I can get out here. So anyway, that's me update. It was a bit fast on the old tender side of things. One thing I'll just show you quickly though, and I don't know if you can see it there, there's an hell of a curve in that, and you'll think, well, why is there a curve in it? And that is because the heat that was transferred into that plate when it was cut, and what's happened, the curve isn't allowing me to get both bumpers in right. It's curving it enough to make it too tight to push one in out of the two. So what I need to do is I need to take the curve out of that, because once it's flat, those two holes will marry up exactly for the bumpers, and then that's it done. Then I'm happy with that. So yeah, that's a big old lump of metal. That this tender's going to start getting heavy soon, I know it is, and then it'll have to go onto a different bench, because this one that it's on, it's not really big enough for constructing a full tender. That is for certain. Even the bench that this wagon's on is not big enough to put the tender on it. So I'll have to do some thought on that. I'm going to outgrow my workshop so quick. Anyway, thank you for watching. Sorry it's a bit of a long-winded, boring video with not much to show you. I've shown you a bit of what I'm doing and what's going on. As I say, I'm full of cold and not really feeling tip-top. Work is still being busy and it's not giving me any workshop work at all. I was surprised I managed to get to that show, to be honest. But there you go, enough of me moaning. See you all next time. Keep model engineering, like, share and whatnot on the old YouTube for me. People have given me some great feedback and I can't thank you all enough. So see you next time. Ta-da.